My fiancée said, "I don't love you anymore." Then her parents told me the truth. The words did not just feel like a rejection, they felt like the entire universe had suddenly shifted on its axis, leaving me falling through a void of absolute shock and disbelief. We were sitting at a small, candlelit table at Il Ritorno, the tiny Italian restaurant where I had proposed to her exactly 1 year ago, a place that was supposed to be sacred ground for our love, filled with the happy ghosts of our future plans. The air was thick with the smell of garlic and basil, and the soft clinking of wine glasses and murmured conversations from other couples created a soundtrack of normalcy that made her declaration feel even more surreal and violently out of place. She delivered the sentence with a chilling, flat calmness, her eyes fixed on a point somewhere over my shoulder, refusing to meet my gaze, as if I were already a stranger she was trying to ignore on a crowded train. She slowly, deliberately slid the beautiful diamond engagement ring I had spent months saving for across the smooth white tablecloth, pushing it toward me like it was a piece of unwanted business, her movements mechanical and devoid of any emotion. I stared at her, my mind scrambling for purchase, trying to find the joke, the hidden camera, the sign that this was some terrible test or prank. But her face was a closed door, a mask of resolute finality that offered no entry point for my confusion. "Clara, what are you talking about?" I finally managed to choke out, my voice sounding thin and desperate even to my own ears, the happy buzz of the restaurant suddenly feeling oppressive and mocking. "Is this about the argument over the honeymoon? Because we can go to Bali. I don't care about Greece. That's not important." She just shook her head slowly, her lips pressed into a tight, bloodless line, and offered hollow, rehearsed-sounding platitudes about growing apart and not being the same people we were, and the classic, devastatingly generic, "It's not you, it's me." She claimed she had been feeling this way for a while, but hadn't known how to tell me, a statement that felt like a physical punch to the gut, because we had just that morning been laughing over coffee and arguing playfully about which song we should have our first dance to. The rest of the dinner was a blur of numb agony. I don't remember eating. I don't remember paying the bill. I only remember this cold weight of the ring in my palm and the sight of her walking away from the restaurant without a single backward glance, her figure swallowed up by the cheerful evening crowd. The following 48 hours were a desolate landscape of grief, a cycle of staring at my phone, replaying every moment of our relationship for clues, and weeping uncontrollably in the shower where the sound of the water could mask my brokenness. My apartment, once filled with her laughter and the cozy clutter of our shared life, now felt like a museum of a happiness that had been incinerated without warning, every photograph on the wall a tiny, exquisite torture device. I knew I needed some form of closure, some tangible act to signal the end, so I gathered the box of her childhood keepsakes, a beloved teddy bear, her old ballet slippers, a stack of faded journals that she had left at my place for safekeeping during a closet reorganization, intending to leave it on her doorstep as a final silent goodbye. I drove to her parents' house, a place that had become a second home to me, bracing myself for their awkward sympathy or even their shared disappointment in me, assuming their daughter had told them a story that painted me as the villain. Her mother, Evelyn, answered the door, and her face was not filled with the cold disapproval I expected. Instead, her eyes were red raw and swollen from crying, and she looked at me with a profound, heartbreaking sadness that immediately confused my entire understanding of the situation. "Oh, Alex," she whispered, her voice cracking, and without another word she pulled me inside by my arm, her grip surprisingly strong and urgent. The familiar, cozy living room felt different, shrouded in a palpable cloud of sorrow, and her father, Robert, was sitting in his favorite armchair, not reading his newspaper but just staring blankly at the cold fireplace, his shoulders slumped under an invisible, immense weight. He looked up as I entered, and his expression was not of anger but of a deep, haunted exhaustion that seemed to age him 20 years. Evelyn guided me to the sofa and sat beside me, holding both of my hands in hers, which were trembling slightly, and she took a deep, shuddering breath, as if steeling herself for a task of immense emotional difficulty. "Alex, what Clara told you, it isn't true," she began, her voice barely a whisper, each word seeming to cost her a great effort. "She loves you more than anything in this world. She has never stopped loving you for a single second." I stared at her, completely bewildered, my mind reeling, unable to reconcile this statement with the cold, distant woman who had dismissed me at the restaurant. Robert finally spoke, his voice a low, gravelly rumble filled with pain. "She's sick, son. Very, very sick." He explained that a few months ago, Clara had begun experiencing strange episodes of confusion, forgetting common words, getting lost on drives she had taken 1,000 times, and suffering from intense migraines. After a battery of terrifying tests and agonizing waiting, they had received a diagnosis so cruel that it seemed like a plot from a tragic movie, a rare, aggressive form of early-onset Alzheimer's that was rapidly attacking her brain, eroding her memories, her personality, and her very sense of self at a horrifying speed. The doctors were brutally honest about the prognosis. The disease was merciless and would only accelerate, stealing the vibrant, brilliant woman we all knew and leaving behind a shell that required constant, heartbreaking care. The stress of a major life event, like a wedding, could potentially act as a catalyst, speeding up the cognitive decline dramatically, and the emotional toll of watching her new husband slowly become a stranger to her and then her caregiver would be a special kind of hell for both of them. Clara, in a moment of devastating lucidity between the foggy episodes, had overheard this prognosis and had made the most agonizing decision of her life. She would sacrifice her own happiness to save me from that future. She had begged her parents, through tears of utter despair, to promise they would never tell me the truth, to let me believe she was a villain so that I could hate her, move on, and find a full, happy life, unburdened by her tragedy. Hearing the truth was like having the ground disintegrate beneath my feet a second time, but this time the fall was into a different kind of abyss, one not filled with the sting of betrayal, but with the overwhelming, suffocating weight of a love so profound and selfless it was almost unbearable to comprehend. The image of Clara at the restaurant, her forced coldness, her averted eyes, was completely rewritten. Every moment of that awful conversation was now a testament to her love for me, a performance of unimaginable courage and sacrifice, staged to set me free. My grief for our lost future was instantly compounded by a devastating empathy for the private hell she was enduring, facing her terrifying diagnosis alone while pushing away the one person she wanted most by her side. The anger and confusion I had carried for 2 days evaporated, replaced by a heartbreak so vast and complex that it had no name, a storm of admiration, sorrow, and a fierce protective love that roared back to life with even greater intensity. I looked from Evelyn's tear-streaked face to Robert's defeated posture, and I understood the immense burden of their promised secrecy, the agony of watching me hurt while knowing the beautiful, tragic truth. I left their house that evening not with closure, but with a terrible, impossible choice laid before me, a moral crossroads with no easy path. I could honor Clara's courageous, heartbreaking sacrifice. I could walk away, as she so desperately wanted me to, and try to build a new life haunted by the ghost of what could have been, always wondering how she was. Or I could fight. I could choose to defy her selfless decision, storm back into her life with the truth, and vow to walk with her into the gathering darkness, to be her caregiver, her anchor, her memory, when she could no longer remember for however long we had left. One path was a promise of eventual, though lonely, freedom. The other was a guarantee of immense daily heartbreak and a pain that would only deepen with time. The woman I loved had tried to give me a gift of a future by shattering our present, and I now had to decide whether to accept that gift or return it unopened, choosing a different, harder kind of love. The truth had set me free from the lie, but it also shackled me with the weight of the most profound and devastating decision of my life.